Melissa Ferrer-Smith with Forward Thinking Leverage Solutions. Welcome to Tea Time with Missy. I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker, Cheryl Orr. She is the principal owner of Inside HR Partners, an HR consulting business which caters to small and mid-sized businesses in the DFW Metroplex. Ms. Orr has over 25 years in the field of HR, most recently retiring from DART as their Vice President of Human Capital. She has held a variety of leadership roles in the HR field. She describes her HR practice as strategic, as one that she partners with businesses in order to understand their unique needs, offering value-added HR services. Cheryl, welcome. How are you doing during this pandemic? Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. You know, it's funny. I've been taking this time to rest, reflect, and catch up. So far, I haven't felt too closeted. And someone sent me a message the other day and said, how's house arrest going on for you? I'm like, I'm good, actually. I am good because I'm getting lots done that I think I would be stressed out about if I still was running around in my car.
I'm like constantly ping-ponging from webinars and learnings and bringing insights like yourself, just expertise to help small businesses out there. So yeah, it gets really busy. And the same for us. We've been kind of still here, my husband and my daughter, and she's doing homeschooling. So we're observing quarantine, absolutely. I wanted to take us to our topic for today is how HR leaders are even more critical nowadays in managing the effects of COVID-19. And you being a leader of HR for many years, I wanted to get your insight so that you can share your knowledge to businesses out there. Why do you think that the HR leader role is so critical now during these times?
Well, you know, I was thinking the other day and I thought, people are really our most valuable asset. So it's not the equipment, it's not the cars, it's not the buildings we work in, it's the people.
Yes.
And I think this whole situation has shown how critical people are to our organization. I really think that we need to partner with business. We need to understand, there's two pieces. We need to understand what their needs are,
Right.
But we also have, you know, some rules and regulations and some laws, like the new law that just came out on family first.
Yes.
And being able to interpret and talk about those with the leaders of the organization. But really, I call it like whispering in the leader's ear, just saying some things that will be helpful to them and then let them sort of process that and see what direction they want to go. Now, in particular, we are real problem solvers. We have to help the organization with all the issues that, you know, are returning to the workplace. We have to help the organization solve the problems that folks bring there so that they are freed up to work. So I think problem solver was one of the big words I thought about, or competencies I thought about as we talked.
How do you think that in these competencies, and feel free if there's any additional skills, can HR leaders, or what are some that they need to own to help the businesses get reestablished into the future coming out of COVID-19?
Well, I had a couple of thoughts. One is I called it calmness, that we have to be sort of the calm person, the calm group, if you will, the HR group that helps the organization get back to work and move on. And that's not going to be easy. So the first competency was our ability to bring about a calmness in our interaction with our business partners. The other is that we do need to be what I call an internal business consultant. They need to come to us with their issues and we need to help them, and then pretty much like that problem solving I talked about earlier, or find the resource they need, or be able to just give them the information that they need in order to, one, continue on their business. I think that's a really important role. And one of the other competencies that I think is very important are effective communication skills, both written and oral skills. They're both important. One, because we have to be able to effectively communicate with the leaders and the folks that are coming to us for answers. But two, I think we have to coach the leaders, the managers, the supervisors in how to communicate with their folks. Someone said to me, it's really about communication, communication, communication.
It is.
And I totally agree with that. Making sure that you keep employees up to date, know what's going on. It's invaluable. You get so much important information out to employees, and it's invaluable in terms of how they feel.
And by that simplicity of communicating well and the frequency, that regular, that continuity, um, it puts the employees at ease. A simple thing, but it really helps the business calm down a little bit.
But we have to kind of coach the leaders through their ability to effectively communicate with their employees. And now it's more important than it ever was.
Mhm.
And then finally, I was thinking, really need to know your resources out there. So maybe HR, saw itself more internally,
Mhm.
but now you need to know what's out there. People are going to come back. And, I thought at the lowest level may not have enough food because they haven't been paid for whatever period of time,
Right.
or they just don't. And
Yeah.
so we need to have the whole array. And you have EAPs, you have the wellness programs.
Right.
Just know that it's a little different right now in terms of making sure that people are all right.
Yes.
So that means that you need to have and find the resources that employees may need. The biggest one that folks are talking about all over the place are the mental health resources.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can get from your wellness or through your health plans, but making sure that if people are struggling through this, that they have a resource to go to, and that's really important.
Yes, I see that kind of evolving. I really do, is everyone manages stress differently. You bring some great points, Cheryl. Something that comes to mind is that composure that the HR leader has and their calmness and their patience, which comes to mind is how you model the behavior, right? And when you're dealing with chaos, how do you keep the calm? As you mentioned, in being that advisor to the business, there are so many other leaders that have different specialties and they need to be focused on the business.
That's right.
And
Right.
utilizing the HR leader role as the advisor to interpret some of the cumbersome things that come about, the law. And going back from my airline days, I think of that flight attendant who's sitting in the jump seat. It was bumpy and there was turbulence. Everyone's like, you looked at the flight attendant's face. Are they calm?
Believe me,
They
that's
were
right.
calm.
Yeah, that's right. That's
You were
exactly
calm.
what we're looking at.
But if they were not calm and you see them
Yeah.
facing and kind of a look of fear, then you're like, something's not right. So we definitely need to model the behavior. We're advisors, and we're setting up a plan, right? And kind of streamlining, complex into simple and being that great communicator.
And it is complex. I've been reading some of the material, the legislation that's come out, and then locally and state and federal, and it's very complex.
Yes.
And, I think I pretty much know what I'm reading and looking at. And there's sometimes when I have to call up some folks and say, now let me be clear about what this means.
Right.
So we really do have to help our leaders understand what's being required of them as per these laws, these rules, these things.
How do you see the HR role evolving over this next season and how they anticipate the business's need in the next 1 to 3 years?
Well, I thought about this, and one of the things that I thought was really, really important was that you have to be strategic in your thinking and your planning versus tactical, just kind of day to day. We just cannot be day to day anymore. We have got to see down the road and try to anticipate, meaning reading and making sure you have information. I read all the time. I read HR journals. I love Harvard Business Review. That's like hot off the press kind of information. So you got to stay up to date and then help your organization. It's really important to grow by helping them to understand where they're going to have to be down the road. So for instance, you need to encourage businesses to implement best practices. Now, that sounds really good, but that's that whole issue about, I've been doing it this way for the last 20 years, and it's really okay. But it's kind of not. It's really, if it's a best practice out there and it's been tried and people are saying, this is really a great way to do things, then, we might want to look at it. And I think encouraging your leadership too. So let me give you an example, like
Mhm.
telework. So I remember someone in one of my calls in the last couple of weeks saying their company did not want to telework, never let anybody do that, and they now had to telework. And the point is, they were able to do the work teleworking just as if they were sitting in the office.
Right.
So I think a relook at telework is one of the things that many companies are going to have to do and want to do.
Yes.
It has all kinds of benefits that people did not see prior to now. The other thing is that I'm the big proponent of gauging where your workforce is. So this whole employee engagement piece, using pulse surveys to figure out where people are at,
Great.
I think it's critical to ask employees, what do you think about the workplace? What do you think about what's going on? And be, I call it strong enough to receive that feedback. But
Yes.
then it's not just receive it, it's also then take their feedback from those surveys. And I believe in an engagement survey every couple of years is critical. And then I call create a roadmap where you're going to go based on what your employees have told you.
Right. Those are excellent, excellent points, Cheryl. And having also worked with a number of surveys with the companies, I'm a big proponent. Sometimes I think businesses think this is complex. The answers are in our wheelhouse. Ask the employees. So you have, in a way, a rough draft. You just need to find out what is priority. But the answers are there. And a lot of organizations now are surveying their customers and their employees, and key in having that alignment, making sure that it's effective and aligned. So it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so
Oh,
much for
thank
sharing your
you.
expertise. And to our viewers, once we post this, please go ahead and pose your questions. Cheryl and myself will answer those questions. For myself, with Forward Thinking Leverage Solutions, my role has to do with helping businesses set up a strategy and a plan as simple as steps and processes. And the key is to optimize how the business conducts their services. And Cheryl can help with her strategic HR practice, where she looks to understand her client needs and offer value added HR services. So, Cheryl, thank you so much.
Oh, gee, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you for viewing. We wish you well. Stay safe.